Mighty God, you are the author of all good thinking. Give to us good thoughts, discipline of mind. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, we're in Bishop Gilbert's The History of the Reformation of the Church of England, and we're in Edward VI's journal. And our sense of it so far is that he's precocious. We've come as far in the journal as February and March 1551, and he's just shy of 15 years of age. We're right on that. Yeah, he's still 14. Pretty sharp kid. If this is genuinely his, I would take it is. He was brought up Latin and Greek. Used to write Latin letters to Dr. Cranmer, although we've not seen Cranmer so far, but we got a mention of Wiley Winchester and also the death of Dr. Martin Bucer. There's a proclamation signed for the shortening of the fall of the money to that day. We're jumping in here in the middle of his journal in July, I believe it is, in which it should be proclaimed and devised that it should be in all places of the realm within one day proclaimed. Lord Clifton and Cobham were appointed to meet the French at Gravesend, and so to convey him to Durham's place where he should lie. I was banqueted by the Lord Clifton at Deptford, where I saw the Primrose and Mary Willoughby launched. The Frenchmen landed at Rie, and some thought for fear of the Flemings lying at Land's End, chiefly because they saw our ships were let to the wind that they could not come out. Sir Peter Mutis at Dover was commanded to come to Rie to meet Monsieur Le Marchal, who so did. And after he delivered his letters written with mine own hand and made my recommendations, he took order of horses and carts for Monsieur Le Marchal, in which he made such provision as was possible for such sudden. Monsieur Le Marchal set forth for Rie in his journey. Mr. Culpepper and divers other gentlemen and their men, to the number of 1,000 horse, well furnished, met him and brought him to Maidstone that night, removing to Westminster, and then on the 8th. Monsieur Marchal came to Mr. Baker's, where he was very well feasted and banqueted. The 9th, the same came to my Lord Cobham's to dinner, and at night to Gravesend. Proclamation made the Testorn should go at 9D and a groat at 3D in all places of the realm at once. This time the sweat came into London, which was more vehement than the old sweat. For if one took cold, he died within 3 hours, and if he escaped, it held him but 9 or 10 at the most. Also, if he slept the first 6 hours, as he should be very desirous to do, then he raved and should die raving. On the 11th, it grew so much, for in London the 10th day there died 70 in the Liberties. And this day 120. And also one of my gentlemen, another of my grooms, fell sick and died, that I removed to Hampton Court with very few with me. The same night came Marshall, who was saluted. All my ships being in the Thames, 50 and odd, all was shot well furnished. And so with the ordnance of the Tower, he was met by Lord Clinton, the Lord Admiral, with 40 gentlemen at Gravesend, and so brought to Durham's place. I wonder if that's the same Durham's place where the Wiltshires inhabited, and where Cranmer did his work for Henry's case. Anyways, it's Durham's place. Because of the infection at London, he came this day to Richmond, where he lay with a great number of gentlemen, at least 400, as it was by divers esteemed, where that night he hunted. He came to me at Hampton Court at 9 o'clock, being met by the Duke of Somerset at the wall end, and so conveyed first to me. After his master's recommendations and letters, he went to his chamber on the Queen's side, all hanged with cloth of arras, and so was the hall, and all my lodging. He dined with me also. After dinner, being brought into an inner chamber, he told me he was come not only for delivery of the order, but also for to declare the great friendship the king his master bore me, which he desired I would think to be such to me as a father beareth to a son, or a brother to a brother. And although there were divers persuasions, as he thought, to dissuade me from the king his master's friendship, and witless men made divers rumors, yet he trusted I would not believe them. Furthermore, that as good ministers on the frontiers do great good, so much ill harm, for which cause he desired no innovation should be made on things have been so long in controversy, by hand strokes, but rather by commissioners' talk. I answered him that I thanked him for his order and also his love, and I would show likewise love in all points. For rumors they were not always to be believed, and that I did sometime provide for the worst, but never did any harm upon their learning. For ministers, I said, I would rather appease these controversies with words than do anything by force. So after he was conveyed to Richmond again, the 16th he came to present the order of Monsieur Michal, whereafter with ceremonies accustomed he put on his garments. He and Monsieur G, likewise of the order, came one at my right hand and the other at my left to the chapel, where after the communion celebrated, each of them kissed my cheek. It was 1551. They're using the 1549 Book of Common Prayer. Frenchman, English Book of Common Prayer. After they dined with me and talked after dinner and saw some pastime, and so went home again. On the 18th, a proclamation made against regratters and forestallers, and the words of the statute recited with the punishment of the offenders. Also, letters were sent to all officers and sheriffs for the executing thereof. 19th, another proclamation made for punishment of them that would blow rumors of abasing or enhancing of the coin to make things dear withal. The same night, Monsieur Le Marchal Saint Andre supped with me. After supper, saw a dozen courses, and after I came and made me ready. 20th. Next morning, he came to me to mine orang and saw my bread chamber and went a hunting with hounds. Saw me shoot, saw my guard shoot together. He dined with me and heard me play on the lute, ride, come to me in my study, supped with me, and so departed to Richmond. 19th. The Scots sent an ambassador hither for receiving the treaty, sealed with the great seal of England, which was delivered unto him. And I sent Sir Chalmers Challoner, clerk of my council, to have the seal or a confirmation of the last treaty at Northampton. 17. This day my Lord Marquess and the commissioners coming to treaty of the marriage, offered by later instructions 600,000 crowns, after 400,000 pounds, and so departed for an hour. And seeing they could get no better, came to the French offer of 200,000 pounds, half, to be said, paid at the marriage, half 6 months after that. Then the French agreed that her dote should be but 10,000 marks of lawful money in England. Thirdly, it was agreed that if I died, she should not have the dote, saying they did that for friendship's sake without precedent. The 19th, the Lord Marquess having received and delivered again the said treaty, took his leave, and so did all the rest. At this time there was a bickering at Parma between the French and the Papists. Monsieur de Terme, Petrostrossi, and Fontenelle, and divers other gentlemen, to the number of 30 with 1,500 soldiers, entered Parma. Gonzaga with the emperor's and pope's band lay near the town. The French made sallies and overcame, slaying the Prince of Macedonia and the Signor Baptista, the pope's nephew. 22. Mr. Sidney made one of the four chief gentlemen 23. Monsieur de la Marchal came to me declaring the king his master's well-taking, my readiness to this treaty, and also how much his master was meant that way. He presented Monsieur Boisdauphin to be ambassador here, as my Lord Marquis the 19th day did present Mr. Pickering. 26. Monsieur le Marchal dined with me. After dinner, saw the strength of the English archers. After he had done so, at his departure, I gave him a diamond from my finger, worth, by estimation, £150, both for pains and also for my memory. Then he took his leave. He came to me, 27, hunting, to tell me the news and show the letter his master had sent him, and doubles of Monsieur Terme and Marianne's letter, being ambassador with the emperor. 28. Monsieur le Marchal came to dinner to Hyde Park, where there was a fair house made for him, and he saw the coursing there. 30. He came to the Earl of Warwick's, lay there one night, and was well received. Now we're into August. 3. Monsieur le Marchal departed to Boulogne, and had certain of my ships to conduct him thither. 9. 4 and 20 lords of the council met at Richmond to commune of my sister Mary's matter. I wonder if Cranmer was in that one. Who at length agreed that it was not meet to be suffered any longer, making thereof an instrument signed with their hands and sealed to be a record. The Lord Marquis, for the most part, his band came home and delivered the treaty signed. 12 letters sent for Rochester, Inglefield, Walgrave to come the 13th, but they came not till another letter was sent on May 13. 14. My Lord Marquis' reward was delivered at Paris, worth £500. My Lord Eli's 200, his hobbies 150, the rest about one scantling. 14. Rochester had commandment hither to hear nor suffer any kind of service, but the communion at altars set forth alar by Parliament, and had a letter to my lady's house from my council for their credit, another to herself for me. Also appointed that I should come to and sit at the council when great matters were in debating, or when I would. This last month, Monsieur de Termes, with 500 Frenchmen, came to Parma and entered safely. Afterwards, certain issued out of the town and were overthrown, as Scipiaro, Vandalo, Petro, and others were taken and some slain, and after they gave skirmish, entered the camp of Gonzaga and spoiled a few tents and returned. 15. Sir Robert Dudley and Barnabas sworn 2 of the 6 ordinary gentlemen. Last month, the Turks' navy won a little castle in Sicily. 17. Instructions sent to Sir James Cross for divers purposes, whose copy is in the secretary's hands. Page?
What?
I'm recording here. The Testorn cried down from 9p to 6p. The groat from 3p to 2p. The 2p to a penny, the penny to a halfpenny, the halfpenny to a farthing. Monsieur Termes and Scipiaro overthrew 3 ensigns of horsemen at 3 times. Took 1 dispatch sent from Dom Fernando to the Pope concerning the war, and another from the Pope to Dom Fernando, discomfited 4 ensigns of footmen. Took the Conte Camillo of Castillon and slew a captain of Spaniards. 22. Removing the Windsor. 23. Rochester returned, denying to do openly the charge of the Lady Mary's house for displeasing her. 26. The Lord Chancellor and Mr. Comptroller, the Secretary Petra, sent to do the same commission. 27. Mr. Coverdale made Bishop of Exeter. 28. Rochester sent to the fleet. Rochester. The Lord Chancellor did that they were commanded to do to my sister in house. 31. Rochester committed to the Tower. The Duke of Somerset, taking certain that began a new conspiracy for the destruction of the gentlemen of Ockington 2 days past, executed them with death for their offense. 29. Certain Penaches were prepared to see that there should be no conveyance over sea of the Lady Mary secretly done. Also appointed that the Lord Chancellor, Lord Chamberlain, Vice Chamberlain, and the Secretary Peter should see, by all means they could, whether she had used the Mass, and if she did, that the law should be executed on her chaplains. Also, that when I came from this progress to Hampton Court or Westminster, both my sisters should be with me till further order were taken for this purpose. September 3, the French ambassador came to declare first how the emperor wronged divers of his master's subjects and vassals, arrested also his merchants, and did cloakedly begin war. For he besieged Mirandola round about with forts he had made in the French king's country. And he stayed certain French ships going a fishing to the Newfoundland. Furthermore, he set a dozen ships which bragged they would take the Dowager of Scotland, which thing stayed her so long at Dieppe. Whereupon his master taken the whole fleet of Antwerp, conveying it to his country and his ports. By 10 ships he'd set forth under Baron de la Garde. Also minded to send more help to Piedmont and Mirandola. For this cause he desired that on my coasts the Dowager might save passage and might be succoured with my servants at the sea coast if any chance should happen. He was willed to put it in writing, showed how the Turks navy, having spoiled a piece of Sicily, went to Malta, and there took an isle adjacent called Gozo. From thence they went to Tripoli. In Transylvania, Rostobassa was leader of the army and had spoiled it wholly. In Hungary, the Turks had made a fort by the mines to get them. Magdeburg was freshly victualled, and Duke Morris came his way, being suspected that he had conspired with them there. It was answered to the French ambassador, this is the fourth, that the Dowager should in all my ports be defended from enemies, tempest, and likewise also thanks were given for the news. 5. The emperor's ambassador came to require that my sister Mary's officers should be restored to their liberty, and she should have her mass till the emperor was certified thereof. It was answered first that I needed not to answer, except I list, because he spake without commission, which was seen by the shortness of the time since the committing of her officers, of which the emperor could not be advertised. He was willed no more to move these pikes, in which he had often answered without commission. He was answered that the emperor was by this time advertised, although the matter pertained not to him. Also that I had done nothing but according to the king's office herein, in observing the laws that were so godly, and in punishing the offenders. The promise to the emperor was not so made as he pretended, affirmed by Sir Philip Hobby being at that their ambassador. The 6th, deliberation touching the coin memorandum, that there were divers standards, 9 ounces fine, a few 8 ounces fine, as ill as 4. Because all that was fine, yet a shilling was reckoned for 2 shillings, 6 ounces, very many. Whereupon agreed that Testorn being called to 6pence, 4 with the help of 6 should make 10 fine, 8 fine with help of 9, but being fewer than those of 8, should make 10 ounces fine, with 2 ounces of allay. Number 9, a proclamation sent forth touching the prices of cattle, hogs, pigs, beeves, oxen, muttons, butter, and cheese, after a reasonable price, not fully so cheap as it was when the coin was at the perfectest, but within a 5th part of it or thereabouts. Number 10, I moved to Farnham. 12, the proclamations set forth touching the coin, that whereas it was that men for gain melted down 9 pence testorn continually, and 6 pence there should be no person in wise to melt it down upon pain to incur the penalty of the laws. A letter directed to the treasurer, the Lord Great Master and Master of the Horse, to meet at London for the ordering of my coin and the payment of my debts, which done, to return and make report of their proceedings. 11, war proclaimed in Britain between the Emperor and the French. By these terms, Charles Roy de Espagne and Duke de Milan, leaving out Emperor. Number 10, 4 towns taken by the French soldiers that were the Emperor's in Piedmont, Guerre, and Amiens. Also, the Emperor's country there was spoiled, and 120 castles or fortresses taken. Proclamation made in Paris touching the bulls that no man should go for them to Rome. Other ships also taken by Prior de Capua merchants to the number of a dozen. Prior Capua had 32 galleys. 19, the French ambassador sent this news also that the Turks had taken Tripoli. 20, the Secretary Cecil and Sir Philip Hobby sent to London to help the Lord Treasurer in matters of bishops of Chichester, Worcester, and Durham, an examination of my sister's men. 18, removing to Windsor. 20, the lords at London, having tried all kinds of stamping, both of the finesse of 9, 8, 6, 4, 3, proved that without any loss but sufferable, the coin might be brought to 11 ounces fine. Whereas it was thought before that the testorn was, through ill officers and ministers, corrupted, it was tried that it had the valuation just by 8 sundry kinds of melting. 22, whereupon they reported the same, and then it was concluded that the testorn should be 11 ounces fine, the proportion of the pecus according to the gold, so that 5 shillings of silver should be worth 5 of gold. 23, removing to Oatland. 24, agreed that the stamp of the shilling and 6 pence should be on one side, a king painted to the shoulders in parliament robes with a chain of the order. 5 shillings and half shillings should be a king on horseback armed with a naked sword hard to his breast. Also that York's Mint and Throckmorton's in the Tower should go and work the fine standard. In the city of York and Canterbury should be the small money be wrought of a baser sort. Officers for the same were appointed. Piece of Berwick wall fell because the foundation was shaken by the working of a bulwark. 26, the Lord Marquis Dorset grieved much with the disorder of the marches towards Scotland, surrendered the wardenship thereof to bestow where I would. 27, the wardenship of the north given to the Earl of Warwick, removing to Hampton Court. 28, commissioners appointed for sitting on the Bishop of Chichester and Worcester, 3 lawyers, 3 civilians. 10, the Imperials took the suburbs of Heading and burnt them. 26, the passport of Dowager of Scotland was made for a longer time, till Christmas. And also she were driven to pass by land quietly into Scotland. 20, Monsieur de Angoulême was born, and the Duke of Vendosme had a son by Princess of Navarre, his wife. 30, the feast of Michaelmas was kept by me in the robes of the order. Number 1, October 1, the commission for the making of 5 shillings, half 5 shillings, groats, and 6 pences. He's really concerned about economics, isn't he? Poundage and coinage. was followed and signed. Number 5, Jarna came in post for declaration of 2 things. The one, that the Queen had a 3rd son of which she was delivered, called Le Duc de Angoulême, of which the King prayed me to be godfather. I answered I was glad of the news, and that I thanked him that I should be godfather, which was a token of goodwill he bare me, and that I would dispatch for the accomplishment thereof the Lord Clinton. I think we will just call that here. Glory be to the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.